Hey Liz,
Hey, Olu.
do you have any advice for our new pope?
No, not to start. No, I don't have any advice. Do you have any advice?
Well, yes, I do. Now, far be it from me to give His Holiness any advice or
So,
guidance, but whatever you do, please do not end up in the same room with JD Vance.
that's true. It's probably solid advice from most people. To start off, we are back after a bit of an unplanned break. We weren't expecting to take this break, or we would have announced it in our last episode. But as you know, if you're a listener of the show, we do this part time, like a hobby. We both have full time jobs that we try to hold down and be good at. And so sometimes work gets in the way, and we're not able to record on the schedule we usually do. And for that, we are sorry, but we are back now and hopefully back to regularly scheduled weekly episodes. So thank you for joining us again. We're happy to be back. And our first topic today, because we missed so much of the BS over the last few weeks, we're just going to stick to some of the bigger stories this week. First topic we're going to talk about is Trump's tariffs and tariff impact. So this week, Trump had his first deal. I'm using the word deal is really doing a lot of heavy lifting here because it's not really a formal agreement. But he had his first deal with the UK, announced his first deal. And Olu, you said you listened to it live. I'm guessing you were so excited to hear all the great things we were going to get out of the UK from this deal.
Yes, I listened to the whole announcement because I was driving for work. Humble brag, we're very busy ladies. But there was a full court press for this. It was fully rolled out. The President Trump, Secretary of Commerce, Lutnick, I think I'm saying his last name correctly, and then the UK ambassador was there. And that's pretty much it. And then they called the Prime Minister of the UK, Keir Starmer, on the phone. Now, what I found interesting was that, Trump and Lutnick rocked out, calling this a very, very big deal. And clearly, if it's a big deal, they would have sent a member of the cabinet, right, from the UK or the Prime Minister himself, right? To be clear, the UK does have a Secretary of Trade and Business, a member of the cabinet, and that person did not bother showing up. Only the ambassador did, which was hilarious.
He was busy. Maybe he had the same dental appointment that Jalen Hurts had when the Eagles went to the White House. He was like, I'm good. I don't have time for this. That's funny. That tells you how seriously they're taking this.
Yes, it was like hair wash day for whoever was supposed to be there.
It's like, I'm super, super busy. Can't do this. And what about the deal itself? Because, Britain is one of the countries that we had a pretty decent trade relationship with before all of this bullshit. One of the things I found interesting was that the 10% tariff is still in place. So I guess, what was the point? What was the point of the negotiation if we're going to leave the tariffs in place?
Well, I mean, the point of the negotiation was for Lutnick and I guess Fox News to have an excuse to lick Trump's boots, right? Because Lutnick came out telling us how very hard Trump worked on this deal, including calling Keir Starmer out of the blue the night before the deal, which just sounds to me like, a college student like writing their paper at the last minute. That's not hard work. That's just laziness.
It's procrastination. That's terrible.
Exactly. And the details of the deal are underwhelming, as you mentioned. The 10% tariffs stay, except there are no tariffs on British steel. So that doesn't actually help American steel, right? Because that means steel from Britain is still going to come in and compete with American steel. So I don't know how the unions, who some of them voted for Trump, are feeling about that. And then he announced also no tariffs on Rolls Royce. I don't know how many working people that's going to affect.
Perfect. Oh my God. I was just about to buy a Rolls Royce Phantom. That was going to be my next car. And now, thanks to Trump, there's no tariff, so the price will go down, hopefully, a little bit. This is perfect. The normal average American is definitely going to benefit from this, I'm sure.
Exactly. As people are watching the empty shelves and, buying toilet paper in bulk, I'm sure there's somebody who also wants to buy Rolls Royce in bulk that is going to benefit from this.
Yes, personally, I was going to do that. As you know, if you go to Costco, that's where they have all the Rolls Royces. This is the dumbest thing. So we put a 10% tariff on the UK. We made Rolls Royce, and I think Bentleys are also made in the UK. We made those more affordable, I guess, for rich people. And what did we get? And also the UK is going to be bringing some steel here to compete with the American steel plants. And I think the arrangement was for them to buy more of our beef and ethanol. And the beef thing is like, American beef is grown with certain hormones that prevent them from being sold in the UK. So like maybe 6 farms in America are going to benefit from this. We still have a 10% tariff. And I guess Rolls Royces and Bentleys will be cheaper. So good for us. Mission accomplished, I would say.
Yeah.
Wow.
And, finally, apparently the UK is going to buy $10 billion worth of Boeing airplanes.
Oh, we can't forget the planes. Yes.
How this helps the mom and pop on the streets, the average person on the street, I don't know. I guess yay for Boeing's, shareholders, but what's that got to do with the rest of the population?
I have no idea. And for context, if you're wondering how many planes that is, one Boeing plane costs around $100 million. So 10 billion is about 100 planes. So, I mean, that's not a small amount of money. I don't want to act like a hater. Good for Boeing. But as Olu said, how does that help you with your groceries, with your Shein orders that now have tariffs attached to them? I don't know. But I guess stay tuned. I'm sure Trump is the art of the deal. There's got to be something coming.
Yeah, I mean, it's barely a deal, right? And you can tell because Keir Starmer didn't even bother, releasing anything. There's no fanfare in the UK, for example, right? He's not able to spin this into a positive for himself because he knows it's a nothing burger. He knows he's just burnishing Trump's ego. So it's just completely useless.
The other thing that came up this week because of the tariffs was the conversation around the ports. The West Coast ports, Seattle, LA, are looking empty, very slow on traffic. And I think there was a stat that said that there's no ships from China scheduled to arrive at Seattle in the next 2 weeks or so. Which in the head of the Seattle port said the last time he had seen this was during the pandemic. And this is really bad news for normal Americans because on so many levels. So first of all, obvious issue. If ships aren't coming into ports, that's cargo we're not getting. Those are goods we're not getting. So that's bad. Then, think about how the ship's cargo gets from the port to a warehouse near you. It's trains, it's trucks. The truckers are going to lose out on commissions for jobs. The trains are going to be running less cars or fewer cars, so they're going to need less staff. This is bad for multiple logistics industries, on top of the fact that people are going to start seeing empty shelves soon. Where are the deals that Trump said he was going to negotiate to fix this?
To be clear, the promise was 200 deals in 90 days, which, again, there are only 195 countries, so they've already set a bar for themselves that they couldn't even meet, and we're halfway through those 90 days. There is one deal that is not even a deal at all.
Yeah, I don't know where we go from here, except maybe to Costco to stock up on some more toilet paper, but long term, this cannot be good. I mean, I don't need to be brought back to 2020 when you would go to the grocery store, and there would be empty shelves and you felt like you were living in some sort of dystopian, world. That's something that, as like children of immigrants, we like, it's so rare. I'm struggling here because it's such a like basic thing to go to your grocery store or your bodega or whatever and see full shelves. That's like the American way is to be stocked. And now we're facing shortages of things, basic things that we were not even thinking about 6 months ago, right? And I'm not even talking about the election. Like before Trump got into office, you could have told people by June you'd be looking at empty shelves and they would have thought you were crazy. And now we're all just acting like this is what we have to deal with just because of the guy in charge. It's insane.
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, there are just dire warnings coming out of the major ports in the U.S. Did you see that the director of the port of L.A. also said there's been about a 35% drop in shipments coming through L.A.? And you can tell that they are feeling it because Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, essentially, placed an ad and is hobnobbing with other countries trying to like make his own trade deals with them so that they don't tank his state's economy with whatever bullshit they're doing over in the Washington, D.C.
Yeah, and I want to say about the port specifically because there have been sort of mixed reports about this. Some people have seen the claims on social media that, especially with Seattle, there was a viral post going around saying the port of Seattle is empty, but data is showing like there's actually been growth year over year. But the reality is the port of Seattle, specifically because I looked into this port, I didn't look into the LA one as much, but it's West Coast, it's the same thing, basically. Port of Seattle had seen an increase in cargo traffic through March. And as you know, Trump's Liberation Day was April 2nd. So in the beginning of the year, cargo traffic was up. People were importing things. In fact, you could say it was up year over year because of the companies who were rushing to get their cargo in before the tariffs. And so there was an increase in traffic. But now, from this end of April moving forward, that traffic has stopped. So I feel like that's an important distinction because there were multiple sort of versions of the story going around. The overall impact, though, is still cargo traffic is down moving forward, and we are all going to start seeing shortages of things moving forward. Unless, of course, Trump does his art of the deal with all 200 countries on Earth. I guess 199, right? Because he just did the UK. So if he can figure out there are many 199 countries, including the ones he made up, we can probably avoid what may be a very, very sad looking summer for Americans.
Yeah, and I know you're being facetious, but even if we were that hopeful, right? Even if he was able to pull off a deal by the end of the 90-day pause that he touted, which is due in July 9th, for example, as you mentioned, like the shipments that are supposed to come now are supposed to supply you for the summer and the rest of the year. So even if he's able to turn this all around in July, we're still going to be extremely screwed for the rest of the year, including Christmas, because like it takes months for ships to cross the Atlantic and the Pacific.
They don't teleport.
They don't. And we've all been through this in the pandemic. All of those prices that got jacked up. Remember the Suez Canal crisis? All of those prices that went up, they never came back down. Once the horse is out of the barn, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I don't expect companies to eat the cost, right? I don't expect them to be nice and keep prices stable. I expect prices to go up regardless. So, I continue to be shocked and amazed every time I see more news coverage about this. And it's just one of the shocking things, by the way. We're not even talking about the transformation of DHS and ICE officials into some weird secret police that's picking people off the street. That's another episode. We're just talking about sort of economic impact this episode. And it continues to be shocking and disturbing how much they're screwing things over. But that's not the only thing that, we wanted to talk about. We kind of alluded to this in our intro. We have a new pope, Olu. Any thoughts on the new pope, being American?
I mean, I'm just so happy for Chicago that they finally have something that is fully theirs. I love Chicago.
Oh my God. Wow. I feel like you just shaded Chicago without meaning to.
I do. I love it. I love it. It does a lot of things very well, but it doesn't have anything that it's like specifically like only Chicago.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like
wow.
It's got, great architecture, but like, some people do that better. It's got,
shit.
Great TV shows and comedy and, like
comics. I feel like you're digging a hole.
Better.
I feel like you're digging a hole here for yourself. Wow. Wow.
I feel like this is the one thing that it can hold over New York and LA and San Francisco.
Excuse me, what about Barack Obama? Hello. Like, what? What do you mean?
Okay, touche.
Wow.
But I mean, like, there have been a lot of presidents, though. Like, multiple places can claim, like, presidents. They can claim the first black president. Well, that's true. Sure. But now they can claim the first pope. So, the first American pope.
Also, apparently, the first black pope since his mother had Creole heritage. So, they're doing something right. But on a serious note, though, I that's actually interesting you brought that up, because just like Obama has ties to Hawaii and, Illinois, this pope has ties to two countries. He obviously is born and raised in Chicago, but he also spent 2+ decades, I think, of his career as a priest in Peru. And people there are like super excited. They are claiming him as their pope as well, which I'm happy for them, right? Like, it's a big deal, especially if you're Catholic. And he does have Peruvian citizenship, like he's a naturalized Peruvian. So I've seen a lot online of people saying, okay, he's not just the first U.S. pope, he's also the first Peruvian pope, like legally. So just like Obama, he has ties to multiple places.
It's just so sad that America's brand is so toxic that when we get the first American pope, people have to rush out to say just how un-American he really is.
That's true. That is
to
so
like
true.
Soothe the rest of the world. You have to be like, actually, he's the least American we could have chosen. It's
really
bad.
That's actually funny and a good point too. And speaking of American, the other discourse I saw online was about the word American being applied to the new pope. I don't know if you saw this, but quite a few people online have gotten very annoyed at people saying this is the first American pope, because they say, and I mean, it's like geographically, it's true. Like, America is not a country. It's a continent. It's two continents, actually, North America and South America. And so people say, the last pope was from Argentina, which is in South America. And so this new pope is not the first American pope. He's the first United States pope. But because America is two continents, he's not the first American pope. I mean, you can imagine it's mostly people from South America who are having this discussion online. I found that fascinating because I've never really thought about the fact that of all the countries in North and South America, it is only the United States that calls people from this country American, right? We have taken over a word that applies to two continents, and we have claimed it for our own in the U.S., because that's what we're all about.
I mean, that's just that empire superiority complex, right? Because Canada is just like, we're Canadians, and Mexico is like, we're Mexicans. And then, the USA has to be like, we're Americans, and we represent all of America,
Exactly. There's no other America. It's the Gulf of America.
Exactly.
It's the United States of America. And y'all in Argentina can suck it. Kidding. I love Argentina. But new pope. I also noticed when he was announced, there was a lot of confusion and maybe some annoyance in the crowd. by people. I don't know if you saw this either, but there, when his name was announced, people were kind of like, who? I was also surprised. I didn't know who this guy was, because they had told us it was so unlikely that we would have an American pope ever. So this was also shocking to me as an observer.
Yeah, I didn't watch the announcement of the Pope, so I don't really know what the reaction was, but my reaction as well was the same. I'm like, but why?
Why? I don't know either.
It just felt like, of all the things the cardinals could have done, this was like the least interesting thing, in my opinion. Like, I was looking for drama, okay? Like, Conclave made me believe there was gonna be, like sex scandals and like, backstabbings or whatever. And it just turns out that they chose the most boring, non-controversial person they could pick.
Well, I mean, if you're looking for drama, he does have drama attached to him. So when he was in Illinois and also in Peru, he was in charge of a Catholic ministries that had accusations for priests that were sort of under him. So he's not necessarily non-controversial. He does have some things to answer for. One of the saddest things to me was when that was brought up and people were saying, he has questions surrounding him about how he has covered up abuse in the past. Somebody had made a comment online that said, it's the Catholic Church, what else is new? Which is just such a really dark, like sad way to look at it. But he's not without controversy. I will say that. So maybe if you were looking for drama, there is some there, unfortunately.
I mean, way to bring down the mood. I was talking about fun drama, like, a secret child or like,
I'm sorry.
Something
I'm so
fun,
sorry.
not like, not like sex abuses.
No, he is not going to be, and I'm going to say it the way they said it in the movie. He's not going to be Cardinal Adeyemi with the nun popping up out of nowhere. No, that's not what it was. And I'm sorry to bring the mood down. I just wanted to say he's not without controversy. So my bad.
Yeah, I mean, the comment, gets to the root of the matter. I think it's going to be very hard to find a cardinal who is able to rise to the position of cardinal and not have been involved in the cover-up of these abuses, which are just like transcontinental, like every Catholic institution across the world has that. So if they were going to disqualify people, I don't know, they would have to like vote in a nun or something. Like, it's just not gonna happen.
Which is never going to happen because women are, in positions of leadership in the Catholic Church. That's not allowed. And I'm sure this new pope is not going to be any different from the old pope on that one topic of women in the church. So, if you saw Conclave, you may have noticed how the movie really positioned the nuns as sort of like, subservient in a way to the priests and the cardinals. That wasn't a mistake. Like that was definitely deliberate movie messaging to highlight how women are perceived in the Catholic Church when it comes to leadership positions, which is something I've always had a problem with the church about. Like I was raised Catholic, so I know what I'm talking about when I say like they need to adjust their perspective on how to treat women in the church. It's not like they're like physically abusive or anything. I'm not insinuating that at all. I just think like in terms of being in leadership positions, it's all men. And I don't think this new pope is going to change that.
Okay, so I'm about to say the most unexpected words ever, which is to be fair to the Catholic Church.
Oh, wow. Hold on. I think we need to like pause and like hear that. You just said to be fair to the Catholic Church. There's got to be pigs flying outside. There's no way. I'm literally going to open a window and check after that.
So this is a problem with religion in general. Well, let me just talk about Christianity because that's what we know.
Probably a good
and that's
idea.
what I know.
Yes.
Christianity is built on the back of the unpaid labor of women. Just like in Conclave, like the women, they clean, they cook, they decorate, they fundraise, they bake cookies, they, do drives, they do laundry, they do all of that. And all of that is just volunteer basis, right? I remember growing up, and the women did everything, right? And the pastors and the deacons just showed up and said a few words. But all of the labor of, maintaining the church and keeping it in shape and, raising the members of the church and all of that is all on women. So, it's a sad state of affairs, but that's the truth about religion.
That's true. That's true about Christianity, especially, which is why I don't go to church. Ha! I keep my Sundays free. No free labor from me. But I will say that I hope new Pope is vocal on certain topics. I'm not expecting him to come out and be pro-choice. That would be, again, pigs would be flying at that point. The rapture must be close if that's what's happening. But I will say I hope he is more outspoken than his predecessor on certain things that are going on around the world. I hope he's more outspoken about the American politics and the bullshit, considering he is American. I hope he's more outspoken about what's happening in the Middle East, especially given what Israel has said they're planning to do in Gaza, which is very fucked up. I hope he's more outspoken about Russia and Ukraine. I even want him to speak out about India and Pakistan if that's about to pop off. I just want a pope who has an opinion that hopefully he shares with his billions of followers, so people who call themselves Catholic see that they should be on the right side of history. That's what I hope for him. I mean, we're talking about women in the church. I don't expect that to change. Like, we got to be realistic, right? But on these issues around, like, society and how we're going to move forward as like a species, I want him to be more vocal about the bad guys in the world and what they're doing.
Well, you say that, and that's what, every reasonable person's, stance should be. But as you know, MAGA doesn't want any of that, right?
That's true.
The guy gave an opening address that essentially was like, peace be with all of you. And MAGA was like, and I took it personally. Like,
Yes.
he's just like saying the most, anodyne, most benign thing ever, which is, treat people equally, let peace reign, feed the hungry. And people are like, oh no, this is not the Pope we wanted. And they are all already turning against him.
Can you imagine feed the hungry? That sounds like Marxism and socialism to me. It's just more evidence that people on the right are so far removed from the religious principles that they say they're trying to defend and promote. So like he says, feed the hungry, take care of people, be nice. And that's Marxism. Like I saw multiple people use that word in relation to him because he had one time retweeted criticism of J.D. Vance. Just absolutely ridiculous responses he got. The new Pope received this week.
Yep, like he was responding to J.D. Vance, essentially, saying like love for your own nation and for your own immediate surroundings should be ranked higher than strangers. And the Pope was like, actually, I've read the Bible. Jesus said, love thy neighbor as you love yourself. Like, that's like just like a straightforward thing. Like, you don't get to like rank the way you love people, right? And if you're listed at all in Sunday school or Bible school or confirmation school, you would know this. And that's literally what is setting them off. Just love everybody, love refugees.
Peace
that's
be
it.
with you. Peace be with everyone. And that's a cause for concern on the right. That, again, that's how far away they are from reality and the religious principles. They're just, it's, the hypocrisy is stunning, actually stunning sometimes.
Yeah, we're reaching the point where they are literally holier than the Pope. That's where their mind is, right? It's insane.
Yeah, that's true. It's that's the world we live in, unfortunately, and we're gonna have plenty of time to discuss that and other ways that MAGA is fucking up in future episodes. I want to talk about our last topic, which is around AI once again and how it's creeping into everyone's lives. I think that I think we've made a mistake with AI. That's where I am. If you're curious, my stance on AI, I understand that it can be efficient. I understand they can make people's jobs easier, but those are not the applications necessarily that we're seeing with AI. So, for example, this week there's an article in, I believe it was New York Magazine, about how college students are cheating with AI. um, they're literally using AI to write papers, to do homework. And there is a sense from the professors that teach these kids that the students aren't actually learning. Like when we're millennials, so in our age, we had internet for homework. But I remember trying to write a paper in school, like you had to come up with an idea and an outline, and you would have to do research on what to put in the paper, and you'd have to write the paper yourself from scratch. You don't really have to do that anymore with things like ChatGPT. And that's raising concern amongst America's college professors. And so this New York Magazine article was diving into that and other ways that people are using AI to cheat in job interviews, etc. And so I feel like with AI, we really should have asked that age-old question. You shouldn't have asked if we could do it. We should have asked if we should. And the answer should have been no. But it's too late now. It's actually way too late now.
I agree. This is definitely different than just, the internet and Wikipedia. I mean, unless you were directly copying from Wikipedia, at least you would have to read it and engage with it. Whatever question you wanted to read about, I don't know, birds of paradise, for example, you'd actually have to read it and then put it on your paper. You couldn't just copy directly from Wikipedia. At least eventually you couldn't, because people would, dock you for that. Mm-hmm. But with AI, you actually don't have to read it at all. You can just ask it, generate a paper for me on birds of paradise. You don't have to look through it or anything, and you can just submit it like that, which is the problem. The problem is that even the showing your work part of things, it doesn't come up. It's not even the same as plugging, something into a calculator, right? Because even that level of engagement with it is not involved. It's just auto-generated, and you don't have to think about it at all, which is insane.
Yeah, and that's the concern, right? It's you're supposed to go to college, not just to get a degree, but your mind should be stretched. You should be thinking through what you're writing, what you're saying, how you're saying it, and the ideas behind it. But you literally had examples in this New York Magazine article about kids who would go to ChatGPT and say, write me a paper on this topic, and make sure your phrasing is the same as a college freshman, for example, to make sure that the language wasn't too advanced or verbose. Even to that level of detail where you will have the AI write it in your writing style. Because you can upload multiple papers you've written, assuming you wrote those by yourself, and train the AI to, quote, sound like you, and then have it spit out a new paper for you based on your previous writing style. That is ridiculous levels of what we would call cheating, right? Because the point of writing a paper is to think things through. If you're not even doing that, if you're not even thinking about the idea that you're putting in the paper, I don't really know what's going to happen. I don't want to sound like an old person. I feel like I sound like one of those grandmas that's get off my lawn. But it's actually concerning to me, because I feel like losing that critical thinking muscle, let's say, is part of why we are in the situation we are in today with Trump. Obviously, we're not going to blame AI for boomers voting for Trump or Gen X voting for Trump, but it is still an unfortunate outcome that if we have people who are not thinking and just relying on AI for everything, they are going to lose that critical thinking muscle. That's just what's going to happen.
I agree. And I think it's even worse than not using your critical skills. This is the flattening of the human mind and just like the flattening and the beigification of everybody's sort of voice, right?
Beigification is a word.
Like, I guess I don't know how else to put it. Let's just say flattening, right? Because then everything is the same.
I get it. You mean beige like it's just one flat note. That's everything is the same. Got it. I thought it was a good word. I think beigification is a good word.
Like if you were to read a paper yourself or read a Wikipedia article and then you went back and tried to regurgitate it, at least it would come out in your own voice, right? It would come out with your particular quirks, your particular way of speaking, and your particular way of processing information. Meanwhile, from some of these examples, it's just completely dead. One of the examples they gave was that it's just papers that would say on one hand, on the other hand, without coming to any conclusion, without a single point of view, no actual underpinning logic or perspective. It's just a regurgitation of the facts with no voice behind it.
And that's, that's a real issue, right? And I think if you have someone in your life who's a college student or even a high school student, like a high school senior, you should be helping them maintain that critical thinking skill and that ability. I'm even though I think AI is a mistake, and that's my stance. I do think the cat is out of the bag. There's no putting it back. I think it's here to stay. Like, I'm not saying we need to roll it back. I don't think we can. And in that scenario where there's nothing we can do about it, you have to adjust. And I think there are adjustments being made by some people, but not everyone. The people that I see that are having an over-reliance, I would say, on AI, I think those people are using it incorrectly. I don't think AI should be replacing your actual thought process. I think it can work to speed things up for you. I think it can work to help you search for things. I do not think it should replace your actual thought process. And I see people trying to use AI to replace their thought process. And those are the people that I am actually most concerned about, who don't even think about it. Because you have to be able to fact check the AI, which brings up a use case that I recently learned about, which is in medicine. So I recently learned about an app or a website called Open Evidence that doctors use. It's being called a ChatGPT for doctors. And it looks like it's growing pretty quickly. The VC firm that helps fund this said that they're adding 35,000 doctors a month. That's a lot of people each month signing up. And it's not just doctors, it's nurse practitioners, it's physician assistants. So people who are in medicine are using this tool as a ChatGPT for medicine. And some people online on doctor Reddit threads have said that they are using this tool for diagnosing patients. Other people are using it as a resource for research to speed up the amount of time they spend looking for scientific papers, which they would usually spend hours and hours of time trying to find something. Now they can do that in minutes. I think that's the correct application of a tool like this. But it's just more evidence of how AI is creeping into every single facet of your life. It's not just the college kids. It's not just, the job interview that it's helping you nail. There are doctors using this. There are nurse practitioners using this. There are shrinks using this. It's interesting because these are fields where you need to be an expert in order to fact check the AI that you're getting, the AI results you're getting, and not everyone is using it the correct way.
I agree. I think this is just another evidence of the way expertise is going to be eroded by these applications. First of all, it seems to me that these things are solving so-called problems that do not exist, right? Apparently, this is being trained on a reputable journal or reputable medical journals. Mm-hmm. And then the question I have is, okay, why don't you just go on those journals, right? I just don't understand. could just go to that, but open AI or ChatGPT or whatever it is steals that and gives it to me, and then they pretend that this is innovation, and I still struggle to see the innovation here.
I agree, and I think that as someone who went to business school, read a bunch of Harvard Business School cases, I find it fascinating that this journal, and I'll just tell you, it's the New England Journal of Medicine has partnered with Open Evidence to be, I guess, a source. I'm not really clear on all the components of the partnership. I'm going to say that now. But New England Journal of Medicine is like one of the foremost medical journals in the world even. And they are partnering with Open Evidence, which sounds great on the surface. But I am thinking about the beginning of the internet and the New York Times, which is a very kind of popular business school case that you'll read, where at the beginning of the internet, the New York Times and other online publications, they were so hype for the internet. They put all their articles online for free, made them easily accessible for Google to crawl. It was an amazing partnership. Google would send websites a bunch of traffic. The websites were loving the traffic. It was great. And then at some point, Google stopped sending people to the internet, to the websites, because they would start having summary results. You know, like when you search for something on Google, now you get Gemini AI doing the summary for you. And people stopped going to the websites because they would type in a search term in Google and the summary would show up. So you didn't have to actually go to the New York Times to read whatever it was you wanted, because you could just see the summary. And that was very bad for the New York Times because they lost all that ad revenue. Now, obviously, the New England Journal of Medicine is not running ads like the New York Times, right? That's not how they're run. But I find it fascinating that they weren't more concerned about offering themselves up as a source of content for something like this AI tool. Like, there should be more hesitation before feeding your reputable journal into this AI tool, because there's a chance down the line that the AI tool turns on you effectively because they need to drive revenue. That should be a concern. And I hope they consider it. I don't know what the situation is, but it's just, again, AI is creeping into every facet of your life, and you should be aware of it. It's literally creeping in everywhere.
I agree. Again, we are all of society, we're all just rolling over and letting this thing take over our lives because a select few are heavily invested in it, and they've decided that they have to create a market for it. And it's so funny to me that the way the conversation often goes is to put the responsibility on, the general public or the individual. Like, in many ways, why are we surprised that college students are using, ChatGPT for their essays, right? Like, this is what the people who created it wanted it to be for. And if you let people do that, you then can't blame the kids for eating the sugary cereals, right? And leading to like a epidemic of childhood obesity. And it's the very same logic. We cannot let something come into the market unregulated and then put the onus on the individual. Well, you have to be careful when you're using like OpenAI or ChatGPT or whatever. But the problem is that like these companies are forcing you to use it. Like, you go on Google, Bing, whatever. Even if you're trying to get on the New England Journal of Medicine, at this point you have to like dig through like multiple pages to get to it, because the first thing that is being offered to you is ChatGPT. So like it just feels like we're being like rickrolled into doing this.
Being rickrolled, that's funny. I agree. I think that I'm talking about millennials. This is our fault. I think that's what Olu is saying, because Sam Altman, OpenAI founder, executive, is 40 years old, so he's a millennial. We are doing to Gen Z, Gen Alpha, what was done to us with social media. That's basically what's happening, right? AI is this new wave of technology that's going to come in and change the world. Agreed. Will it be for the better or worse? we'll find out in a few years, just like we did with social media, right? Parenting/personal responsibility will play a role in this. I hate those two words, personal responsibility, but that is important here. It is going to be on us to be on top of it. So, with open evidence for doctors, with ChatGPT for students, you still have to know enough to fact check the results that you're getting. Like, you're still responsible for the thing you put out when you use ChatGPT. And I think that we still need a level of expertise because the AI is not always correct. I personally have multiple examples of AI giving me the wrong information. Literally a week ago, I tried to do some data analysis with ChatGPT for something I was working on, not work related, just personally. And the results that ChatGPT gave me, I fact checked with my own analysis in Excel, and ChatGPT was wrong. So you need to know enough to fact check the thing, not just copy paste it. So I think at some point, the people who are using ChatGPT as a crutch for like actual thinking are going to run into issues. And that's another thing that we'll have to deal with.
I agree. And, I share your hesitancy with using like the personal responsibility stuff because like this is what we said to parents about Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. But a new report just came out that Facebook knew when teenage girls would search for things about their body image, and then it would feed them ads about beauty products and like weight loss stuff, right? So like, again, it feels like American capitalism decided it's going to do this thing and make a ton of money from it, like plastic, for example. And then it tells you that to prevent climate change, you have to recycle, which we all know does like jack shit for preventing like the warming of the environment, right? It's the same thing. We're asking parents. So on top of, all of the social media that they're not keeping track of, now they have to keep track of, the AI bots that are their children's friends, the AI bots on dating apps, the AI that they use for their homework and all of that. And it's impossible. I mean, I can barely do that for myself. How much more doing this for like a young person? And I worry that a lot of the way that we're framing it is actually helpful to the companies who want to like make a ton of money from this, because then they get plausible deniability. They have no responsibility for this. It's up to you to make sure that your child or even yourself doesn't fall prey to the wrong information or the disadvantages of this. And they're making billions off the back of this and they have no responsibility. That's insane to me.
Yeah, and we've already seen the impact of some of this, right? Late last year, there was a news report that was going around of a woman who said that her son had killed himself because of a chatbot that he was interacting with. There's a website where you can create a chatbot that basically acts as a friend effectively, and her 14-year-old son killed himself last year after messaging with the chatbot and saying that he was having suicidal thoughts, and the chatbot like basically encouraged him to do it. And this website didn't really face any consequences for what happened, right? The mother was in the news. She was trying to raise awareness of this issue. They kind of made all these murmurs about being sorry and, regretting what happened, but there were no real consequences. And it's, an area that probably could do with some regulation. AI could be regulated better. But of course, our government officials are like 300 years old, so they don't know what's happening. And unfortunately, even though neither Olu nor I like this, it is going to be up to you to protect yourself, because I don't think anyone else is going to. Do you want to?
I guess what ideally should happen is that our government should like take control of this, right? That is what should happen. Everybody is afraid of big government, but this is what governments exist for. If you allow capitalism to go unchecked, you will have consequences that nobody is going to take responsibility for. I don't think that an individual person can do this and swim against the tide. At this rate, everybody is using AI, and the research shows that we tend to trust machines more than we trust the human beings. So we are creating an environment where we're losing the human factor, and we are ceding all of our lives to a model, a language learning model. And I fail to see how this enriches our lives in any way. And my appeal would be for us to actually vote in people and call into people and tell them that we actually want this to be regulated. You as a parent are not going to be able to stop your child from getting on this. It has to be a law. That's how it's going to work.
Yeah, regulation. Look at that. The liberals are calling for regulation. How cliched. But yes, agreed. Definitely some regulation would help. I know there are some Democrats in DC that are trying to do something, but not enough people are talking about this. And I'm going to be honest, the AI regulation is on a long, long list of things that the government needs to do and will not be doing while Trump is in office, by the way. I don't think they're going to come after this unless someone finds a way to get ChatGPT to start shit-talking Trump. I really doubt we see any AI regulation in the next 3 years. So that means that these websites like ChatGPT, like Open Evidence, like Claude, like I'm sorry, I was going to say Genesis, like Gemini AI from Google. That means all of these are going to continue running unchecked, at least until we get a new president or a new Congress or a new FTC chair. It's unfortunate, but, stay alert, y'all. Stay alert, stay vigilant.
Do you mean stay woke?
Oh, no, you said it, not me. Stay woke, y'all.
Thank you for joining us on this week's episode of Liber Banter. We are your hosts, Liz and Olu. We ask that you do spread the word about our podcast, share with family and friends. We hope you keep coming back. See you next week. Bye for now.